The 2026 FedEx Cup playoffs opened with the FedEx St. Jude Championship at TPC Southwind in Memphis, Tennessee, the first of three postseason events that determine the PGA Tour's season-long champion. The tournament carried a $20 million purse, and the top 50 players in the FedEx Cup standings after the event would advance to the BMW Championship, with only the top 30 progressing further to the season-ending Tour Championship in Atlanta. For Scottie Scheffler, the world number one, the stakes extended beyond a single trophy. He entered the week atop the FedEx Cup standings, and a strong finish would secure a substantial bonus tied to his position heading into the next event. Scheffler had not won a tournament since January, a stretch of nearly 7 months that included 5 runner-up finishes, 2 of which came after losing in playoff holes. Despite the drought, he remained the world's top-ranked player and had compiled 11 top 10 finishes across the season, along with 12 top 5 finishes overall. Earlier in the summer, his run of 78 consecutive made cuts had ended when he missed the cut at the Scottish Open, closing out a streak that had also included 37 consecutive top 25 finishes. Entering Memphis, questions had begun to surface about whether his season, statistically dominant but light on trophies, represented a step back from the version of Scheffler who had compiled 13 wins and 3 major titles across the 2024 and 2025 seasons combined. Thursday's opening round shifted the conversation. Scheffler shot a 2 under 68, with 3 birdies and 1 bogey, describing his approach afterward. "I felt like I hit a lot of quality shots with my irons. It was just, I did a good job of being patient and not trying to force it too much." He added, "I feel like I was right on the edge of having a good day, is how I would describe it. So, I felt like patience-wise, I did a pretty good job." By contrast, his playing partner for the first 2 rounds, Rory McIlroy, struggled from the start. McIlroy, who had not played on tour since the Open Championship and who had planned to skip the St. Jude event entirely before PGA Tour CEO Brian Rowlap encouraged him to play, shot a 4 over 74 in round 1. He played his final 3 holes at 4 over par, including a bogey on the par 5 16th, a bogey on the par 4 17th, and a double bogey on the 18th after hitting his tee shot into the water on a day when the feels-like temperature in Memphis reached 110 degrees. McIlroy did not speak to media after the round. Over the first 2 rounds, Scheffler outscored McIlroy by a combined 15 strokes, with McIlroy finishing those 2 days at 4 over par while showing what reporters covering the event described as visible signs of rust. This contrast, a dominant world number 1 paired directly against a struggling world number 2, became the backdrop against which an unverified claim began circulating within hours of the first round's completion. Following the opening round, an Instagram account calling itself Old Row Longhorns posted a claim attributing a mocking quote to Scheffler about McIlroy. According to the post, McIlroy had asked Scheffler what it would take to beat him, and Scheffler had responded by telling McIlroy to first try shooting under par. The account presented this exchange as something Scheffler said directly on the course, despite attaching no video, no audio recording, and no statement from any credentialed reporter present at the tournament. The German golf outlet Golf Post examined the claim directly, publishing a fact-check piece under the headline, "Fact oder Fake, hat Scottie Scheffler wirklich Rory McIlroy verhonepopelt?" Translated as, "Fact or Fake, did Scottie Scheffler really mock Rory McIlroy?" The outlet's assessment was direct. No evidence from credible sources could be found to support the claim, and the Longhorns account's credibility was compared to a source known for telling tall tales rather than reporting verified news. Golf Post further noted that this type of mockery does not match Scheffler's established public conduct, describing him as a player capable of being blunt but who has consistently shown respect toward fellow competitors throughout his career. The claim spread rapidly across social media in the hours following the first round, moving through screenshots and reposts before any verification had taken place. The credibility gap behind the story was substantial. The account posting it had no track record of confirmed reporting, no corroborating footage of any kind, and no supporting statement from anyone inside Scheffler's team, McIlroy's team, or the PGA Tour's own media operation, which covers every round of a signature event like the St. Jude Championship with extensive camera coverage. A closer look at the timeline undermines the story on its own terms. The quote was attributed to Scheffler in connection with the tournament's opening round, a round in which he shot a modest 68 and described his own play as merely patient, not commanding. The genuinely dominant stretch of golf that defined Scheffler's week came later, not on Thursday, but during the tournament's closing holes on Sunday. Golf Post's own framing reflected this disconnect, presenting the story as an unverified claim worth fact-checking rather than a confirmed news item, and noting that the Post gained traction largely because it fit a broader narrative forming around McIlroy's difficult week rather than because any part of it had been substantiated. Reporting from inside the ropes on Sunday paints a very different picture of Scheffler's demeanor during the tournament's decisive moments. On the par 5 third hole in the final round, Scheffler hit a greenside bunker shot that appeared destined to settle close to the pin for a routine birdie. Instead, the ball struck a sprinkler head, bounced hard, rolled across the green, and disappeared into the water, turning a near-certain birdie into a bogey and cutting his overnight two-shot lead down to a single stroke. Scheffler turned to his caddy, Ted Scott, as the pair walked to take the penalty drop, and asked, "When is this going to stop happening?" Scott replied, "I don't know, man." For a player who had already absorbed 5 runner-up finishes across the season, the moment carried real weight. This documented, in-round exchange, a moment of genuine frustration over a bad break rather than any boast about defeating a rival, stands in direct contrast to the mocking quote attributed to Scheffler by the Old Row Longhorns account. The verified, recorded moment from that week shows Scheffler questioning his own run of misfortune, not taunting McIlroy about his struggles. What followed the bunker mishap on the third hole became the actual headline of the tournament. 2 holes later, Scheffler drilled a mid-iron approach to 10 feet and converted the birdie putt. On the very next hole, he holed a 20-foot birdie putt. The two-shot lead that had briefly narrowed to a single stroke turned into a runaway. Scheffler closed the round with a 4 under 66, finishing the tournament at 17 under 263. The final margin of victory was 8 strokes, tying the largest winning margin recorded at TPC Southwind across the course's 68-year tournament history. It marked Scheffler's 21st PGA Tour title, making him the 36th player in PGA Tour history to reach that total. At the time, he became the 3rd youngest player to reach 21 career titles, trailing only Tiger Woods, who reached the mark at age 24, and Jack Nicklaus, who reached it at age 27. Scheffler collected $3.6 million from the tournament's prize fund and clinched an additional $23 million in bonus money tied to his position atop the FedEx Cup standings heading into the following week's BMW Championship. The victory also moved him closer to Tiger Woods on the PGA Tour's all-time career earnings list. Playing in the final group alongside Scheffler was Sam Burns, one of his closest friends on tour and the best man at his wedding. Burns had shot a third-round 62 to climb within 2 shots of the lead, setting up a genuine contest heading into the final day. Burns took a double bogey on the same par 5 third hole where Scheffler made bogey, and he ultimately shot 73, finishing tied for third at 8 under alongside Alex Noren, who carded a 69. Burns spoke plainly afterward about the difficulty of competing against Scheffler that day. "I don't think it would have mattered if I played well. He was going to be tough to beat today." He elaborated further, "I knew he was going to put a solid round together. Honestly, it was going to be really difficult. He played exactly how I expected him to." Scheffler finished 8 shots clear of Si Woo Kim, his neighbor in Dallas, who closed with a 68 to finish alone in second place. Sung Jae Im, who began the day within 2 strokes of the lead alongside Burns, never threatened and shot a 74 to finish tied for 5th, a result that still proved good enough to advance him from 53rd to 40th in the standings. This was the actual result that defined the week, a hard-fought recovery from a stroke of misfortune, capped by a decisive closing charge, not a taunting remark aimed at a struggling rival. McIlroy never issued any public response to the quote attributed to Scheffler by the Instagram account. In the absence of a denial, portions of social media treated his silence as an implicit confirmation that the exchange had occurred. That interpretation overlooks a far more direct explanation rooted in McIlroy's own week at TPC Southwind. McIlroy's tournament did not go well by his own standards. He carded rounds of 74, 70, 72, and 72, finishing at 8 over par, tied for 66th place, and closing with back-to-back bogeys. The finish did represent an improvement over his previous appearance at the course in 2024, when he finished tied for 68th, but it remained a disappointing week for the world number 2. McIlroy addressed his play candidly afterward. "Obviously, I didn't come in here with a ton of reps. I felt like the more the week went on, the more I felt lost with my golf swing. Figured it out a little bit the last few holes today, but my swing wasn't in sync and I didn't do a ton of practice coming in here." In a separate interview, he went further, stating, "I'm so far away from where I need to be," and adding that he would need to work pretty hard, put my head down and grind before the following week's BMW Championship. A player publicly acknowledging that his own game was lost, and that he was so far away from his best form is not consistent with the behavior of someone avoiding a follow-up conversation about an insult he had just absorbed. McIlroy's public remarks in the days following the tournament focused entirely on his swing mechanics and lack of competitive reps that summer, not on any dispute with Scheffler. The broader public relationship between the two players in the days that followed runs counter to the narrative pushed by the fabricated quote. 6 days after the St. Jude Championship, ahead of the BMW Championship at Bellerive in St. Louis, McIlroy was asked directly whether he had a case for PGA Tour Player of the Year if he went on to win the season-ending Tour Championship. His answer left no ambiguity about his respect for Scheffler's season. "No. I'm not the Player of the Year. No chance. Scottie is." He continued, "Well, sorry, there's 2 weeks to go, but I firsthand watched him for the first 2 days last week, and if he keeps playing like that, if he gains 9 strokes on the greens every week, we're all effed." Those Wednesday press conference remarks were not the words of a player nursing a grievance from a mocking put-down. They were the words of a competitor conceding, on the record and by name, that his rival was performing at a level he could not currently match. The accounts of the people who spent the most time with Scheffler that week add further context. Sam Burns, who played alongside Scheffler in the final group under direct pressure to catch him, described the experience in terms of admiration for Scheffler's consistency rather than any mention of trash talk between Scheffler and McIlroy. "He played exactly how I expected him to." Burns has known Scheffler well beyond the golf course. He served as the best man at Scheffler's wedding, and his public comments after the round centered on Scheffler's focus and ball striking, not on any confrontational exchange involving McIlroy. Siwoo Kim, who finished alone in second place at 8 shots back and lives in the same Dallas neighborhood as Scheffler, did not issue any statement disputing or supporting the fabricated quote either. Nor did any other player in the field with direct proximity to Scheffler and McIlroy that week. Extensive tournament coverage from outlets including ESPN, the PGA Tour's own reporting staff, and Golf Channel documented the sprinkler head bogey, the birdie run on holes 5 and 6, Burns's quotes, and McIlroy's post-round comments about his swing in granular detail. None of that reporting referenced the mocking quote as a real exchange that took place on the course that week. Assembling the full sequence of events produces a clear picture. On Thursday, Scheffler shot a workmanlike 68 and described his own round as merely patient. That same day, an unverified Instagram account posted a quote attributing a mocking remark to Scheffler, without any corroborating evidence. Over the following days, McIlroy struggled to rounds of 74, 70, 72, and 72, finishing 66th at 8 over par, while candidly telling reporters that he felt lost with his swing and was so far away from his best form. Scheffler, meanwhile, delivered the actual defining moment of the tournament on Sunday, a bogey born from a bad bounce off a sprinkler head, followed immediately by 2 birdies, a closing 66, and an 8-stroke victory, his 21st PGA Tour title, worth $3.6 million in prize money and $23 million in additional bonus earnings. 6 days later, at the BMW Championship, McIlroy publicly and directly credited Scheffler as the deserving Player of the Year, describing his level of play as unmatched. That stands as the documented, on-the-record relationship between the two players following the tournament, the world number 2 openly acknowledging the dominance of the world number 1, not a rivalry defined by an unverified insult with no supporting footage, no eyewitness corroboration, and no confirmation from either player's camp or from any of the credentialed media that covered every round at TPC Southwind.